Welcome back, everyone, to For Azeroth, a podcast all about Warcraft. I'm Garrett Weinzierl, she's Jocelyn Moffett, and we've got some WoW to discuss today, Joss.
We do, and I apologize to everybody for not recording yesterday. That was my roommate's fault. Those of you who don't know, I have two roommates who have a wonderful 6-month-old. He's adorable, and both of my roommates were sick with the flu. So I got a text frantically at about 10:30 yesterday morning saying, "Can you please just watch the baby? We can't leave the bathrooms."
All you had to say was they have a 6-month-old, because that's it. It's just a living, breathing petri dish.
Yeah, it wasn't his fault, though. He was, like, laying in bed all happy.
Oh,
and, like,
well,
it was the two of them that were totally just couldn't take care of him because they were throwing up so much. So I was like, yep, I got this. So we had to postpone the show, guys. I'm sorry. But
They must
I had
have,
an adorable 6-month-old to take care of.
They must not have eaten enough dirt as a child. Which is exactly what my wife always says to me every time I get sick. She's like, you should have eaten more dirt when you were a kid. So, and then I, of course, begs the question, and you did? Over.
Obviously.
Yeah, clearly Katie ate enough dirt when she was a child because she gets sick about half as often as I do. Anyways,
so that's where we were yesterday. So I apologize, guys. We're a day late. That's my fault. But we do have good news, though.
We do.
We have some Fell Kitties to give away.
Oh my goodness! Did I win one?
No, you didn't, Garrett.
Was I like not eligible or something?
You didn't use the hashtag, so that's all your fault.
Shoot.
There were very simple rules.
Yes, and clearly so simple, even though I had a part in creating said simple rules that I forgot. Well, go me. Anyway, yeah, we do. We have 3 Fell Kitties to give away. This was donated to us by a lovely anonymous listener, so thank you, anonymous listener. You know who you are. Jocelyn, who won? Who won? I'll let you take these nigh unpronounceable Twitter handles. Like this.
Man, that is so unfair because you always announce the things, and then I would have made the more pronounceable winners.
Okay, right before the show.
The first one's easy. The first one is Duncan Idaho 666, which Garrett thought was what again?
Ducana Daho. Guys, I want everyone to know out there, you can use alternating capitals in your Twitter handles, and they help a lot.
Underscores work as well.
Yeah, but that's harder when you're reading it out loud. You actually have to like stop and break and say underscore next word. So Duncan Idaho, just capitalize that I. Capitalize that I. Thank you. Also, you have 666 in your name, so I want to start singing old hair metal.
I feel like that goes really well with the theme, though. Fell Kitty for the 666.
I mean, it's not
Twitter
satanic
handle.
Kitty. I mean, it's pretty...
Well, but they're kind of like... We were just literally talking about before the show how the Burning Legion is basically like Sargeras is the devil of Azeroth, so he's the fell guy. Come on, connect the dots, Garrett.
Fine. Well, who else won?
Huh?
Who else won themselves a nice little, possibly satanic Fell Kitty?
So our second winner is Pikachu Libre, I think.
I would go with Pugachu, because it just sounds funner.
That kind of sounds closer to Pikachu, so.
Pugachu Libre. Yeah.
And our third winner is JD Potiger?
Potiger. I don't know.
There's a weird E in there, so.
Yeah. If I was, that second one, if I was to say that in my native tongue, it'd be Pugachu Liber.
For a second, I was like, your native tongue? What's your native tongue?
Right. My native tongue is the South, Jocelyn.
Yeah.
It's the South.
Florida redneck.
I fight the urge to say y'all constantly. So
congratulations to those 3 wonderful listeners for winning Fell Kitties. So we'll figure out how to get those to you. I think basically if you just open up your DMs, I should be able to send you the codes. So watch for those.
Nice. Well, I'm glad they're getting good homes. Always make sure you adopt a Fell Kitty. Don't get one from a Fell Kitten mill. They're no good. They're no good.
Which would be what, like the auction house?
Yes. Well, that might be like a private breeder.
Oh, okay.
Which aren't the worst in the world. I've met a few. You know, they tend to love the breed. It's for the love of the breed, Jocelyn. It's for the love of the breed. Even if that breed has been crossbred so many times it has trouble breathing.
Aww.
I love bulldogs, man, but they have genetic issues. Anyways, let's move in to the World of Warcraft news that has been abound since we last recorded. And the first up is one that I'm going to just pitch to you, Jocelyn. I do not keep up with the race for World First, and all I know is apparently there's been some controversy. There's been some controversy in the world of who the heck is downing bosses in Nighthold for the first time.
Yes. So the race for World First, there was a little bit of drama this past week. This is the first time I've really kind of paid attention because it's the first time that I have also been rating current content. Not that I am rating at anywhere close to this level. We are bashing our heads against normal and these guys are clearing mythic. So, I mean, there's still a gigantic gap between me and them. But this is the first time I've been paying attention just because I find it really interesting and really cool that there are people out there that, you know, push to beat the World of Warcraft content as quickly as possible, and it was, you know, no one seems to have done it yet, but the big controversy is that Method, who probably a lot of people are aware of, were kind of sort of locked out by a kind of a DDoS attack, and so lost a few hours of rating. So there were I don't know if it was so there's a few different theories, because basically what happened is then Serenity, who is made up of some old Method players and some new players who is also racing for World First, were then denied access to their lockout because one of the Serenity players grouped with another person. That person converted the group to the raid, gave the Serenity player lead, and then went into Nighthold and then basically held their lockout hostage. So then Serenity was unable to raid for a period of hours. And so there's been one person on Method who was kicked off the team because when it first happened, it appeared like he was the one who orchestrated it. But then now there's been somebody else who's actually come out and said, no, I'm not associated with Method. I did it. Here's the screenshots and proof that it was my character that was in the raid. And I did it to even the playing field, because Method was, you know, had these DDoS attacks on their server and couldn't actually raid. And then so now I'm slowing down Serenity, who, you know, was top of the pack sort of thing, in order to even the score. So it was very much a like white knight. I'm going to make everything fair by, you know, making stuff not really so fair.
That seems a little more Dark Knighty. I mean, not to elevate that player's status, but that seems a little more, you know, Batman than King Arthur.
Yeah. So basically, the kind of the controversy is that Serenity was therefore locked out and kept from raiding for. By the time a GM stepped in, it was a number of hours. So yeah, in the end, it's there's been just so much controversy, and is one team sabotaging the other team or not? But I think Jade Lulz did end up losing his spot on Method as a result of all of this, because he was sharing screenshots and stuff. And everyone's like, well, how would he have screenshots if he didn't do this? And it was hours before the GM even stepped in. So he was kind of on the cutting edge of this news. And so looks like at least partly the guilty party, if not actually the one who did it, at least the one that egged it on. So so he's been removed from Method. And as far as I know, I haven't checked since we did the notes yesterday, but Serenity was at 9 of 10. On Mythic Nighthold. So I don't believe the race is done, but I haven't actually checked this morning. So I'm going to check Reddit right now, because Reddit will tell me.
Oh, very awesome. That's just silly. All of that is really silly.
I love that there are people playing the game that take it this seriously, but I definitely don't agree with sabotaging other teams, whether it's through, you know, targeted DDoS attacks, or if it's through, you know, going in and exploiting game mechanics, I guess. Because basically the reason the lockouts work the way they do is so that you can't like split your team and farm on like multiple different runs of the same lockout. Like everyone's on the same lockout so that you can't like get double gear or anything like that. So I understand why the mechanic is there, but then it does open them up for things like this to happen. And apparently this was is common practice for people to screw with guilds and raid teams like this.
Yep.
And especially now it's become easier and easier because of world quests. So people are grouping up with random people more and more often just through, the mechanic of world quests in this expansion. And apparently, like, it's just becoming easier and easier, and more people are doing this. And it blows my mind. It would never even occur to me to screw over somebody else's rating experience.
Yeah, we're just gonna start DDoSing all of the other podcasts out there, like all of them. I'm not even targeting just Blizzard shows. We're gonna pay for a DDoS attack for that, and then I'm actually going to go and sit in Scott Johnson's house and just block his microphone. I'm just gonna put my hands over his microphone. I'm gonna sit there for hours until the DDoS that we started ends. That's what I'm gonna do. So.
I don't see any news on Reddit. I feel like it would be right at the top of the WoW Reddit. Oh, but somebody's saying world second at 9 of 10. Oh no, they're 9 of 10. Okay, so
world second on 9 out of 10.
Serenity is 9 of 10. World first 9 of 10. And Exorus is 9 of 10, which is they're currently in second place. So nobody has downed Mythic Gul'dan yet.
Good.
As of Tuesday.
Good. It hasn't been out that long. I love it when it takes a while for this to happen.
Yeah, me too. I like, and as a fan, as somebody watching the race, I love that it's not over like day 1 or day 2. I love that it takes a little bit longer. I don't know how the kind of cutting edge rating guilds feel, if they want a longer race or if they want a shorter race, but one way or another, I think longer is probably better for everybody, just because if it takes a little bit more time, then, that means that you don't like go to sleep on day 1 and then wake up day 2 and go, well, shit, we lost our chance at world first because we went to bed. I feel like a longer race is probably better, but I don't know. Maybe we'll have to get a mythic raider on here to give us a little bit of insight into that height of PvE content.
Longer is better. Insert giggle here. Well, let's talk about what's happening in the game, or at least on the PTR, because the live game, it's all's pretty quiet unless you're being a jerk to progressive raid teams. 7.2 PTR has had an update since we last recorded. And first up is crafted legendary items. We've gotten a look at the crafted legendary items, mostly via data mining, I believe, from the patch. Several new quests were added to the 7.2 build, including new profession quests, and those quests have you collect materials before you can craft the new legendary items. Currently, the crafted legendary items do not have a proc. I'm curious if that will stay.
Yeah, and so this is kind of, at first I was super excited because I was like, oh my god, crafted legendaries, like the crafting professions are going to be super relevant. This is going to be amazing, except for I'm pretty sure they're, at least the current iteration of what has been data mined, is that they're bind on pickup, so you're not going to be able to trade and sell these.
Yeah.
And they have no on-equip bonus. So they are going to be a piece of 940, I think. Or, well, right now the data mine says 910, but 910 pieces are upgradable to 940 by doing the essences. The Essence of Amenthal, I think, or Amenthul quest. You have to gather 50 anyways from Mythic Dungeons and raiding and emissary quests and all that kind of PvE content. So... it is possible to upgrade from 910 to 940, so I'm not too concerned about the actual item level of these, but I am concerned that there is no on-equip bonus and that they're bind on pickup, because I think, that means that my plate-wearing tailor isn't going to be able to craft her own legendary, so that's kind of crappy.
Yeah, that's not particularly great, is it? I had tailoring on my paladin for a very long time, so that would have stunk. Although
my paladin is a tailor. So
yeah. Although now my paladin's a jewel crafter, and I don't think I'm going to be able to make any legendary. But at least I'm making money, so who cares?
Yeah, this is very much, it's blacksmiths, tailors, and leather workers are the ones who are going to be able to craft these. So,
right.
I mean, it's interesting. I think it's cool, but I think that they have a long way to go to make this actually relevant. And I think that, I mean, even if they were account bound as opposed to like bind on pickup, then that might be okay, because then like my leather worker, if I still had one, could make stuff for my leather wearing characters. My blacksmith could make stuff for plate wearers,
Yeah,
and
at the very
as
least.
long as I could trade it to other characters on my account, I think that would be kind of okay-ish. But this way, it's just kind of like if you don't have the right profession lined up with the right class, and then do I level blacksmithing from, all the way at the bottom to all the way at the top for every single one of my characters who wears plate? Like, oh my God, no, please. Don't make me do that.
Yeah, that doesn't sound good. These also don't sound easy to get. All of them are going to require 65 Blood of Sargeras, profession-specific materials, legendary materials from the new profession questline, and a Fel Essence Legion flask. And the flask itself, that flask that I just rattled off, is upgraded from many different items, according to the data mined information. And to just give you an idea of the difficulty of completing some of these quest lines, tailors, for example, have to kill Advisor Vandros, Advisor Melandros, and Elisande herself as part of their quest line to get items from them. And blacksmiths must kill Odin, Dargul, and Helia to get items for their quest line. So you're not going to just... 7.2 isn't just going to go live and you're just going to be like, okay, I'm going to craft myself a legendary.
Which, I mean, I feel like I would rather they were sellable on the auction house, but then, like, one of the materials that you need drops off Elisande, so you can get, like, one a week or something. Well, I guess, technically, if you rated on every single difficulty, you could get, like, LFR, normal, heroic, and mythic if you put that much time into rating, and then you deserve to have the ability to craft 4 legendaries per week. Like, I salute you, crafters who are also crazy raiders. But I wouldn't actually mind if there was a material, something that dropped like 100% drop rate, but like off of a raid boss or something that you could only, like, just so that the market doesn't get flooded and you can't just farm that material. I think that would kind of be fine. But the way that it seems to have at least been data mined so far doesn't really seem like it's going to make professions and legendary crafting actually relevant. So that's kind of poopy.
Yeah. It's more of a... It seems almost like a stopgap. Like, oh, I still haven't gotten a second legendary. Well, at least I can craft one.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, like, they've said, and I think we said last week, this is not obviously the full and final version of 7.2. This is all data mined. No one's actually gone through and done all these quests, so it is possible that the final legendaries are going to be different. This could just be placeholders, so it's still kind of a wait and see thing, but the really important information is that we are going to be able to craft legendary items in 7.2, period.
Exactly. A community manager, Erithlia, who I always struggle to pronounce the name of, dove into the official forums and gave us a lot more information on what's happening with the new artifact traits after 7.2 drops. So just to remind you, we're getting new artifact traits that are unlocking with 7.2. She said that players who have an artifact weapon of at least rank 35 will be able to further empower that artifact through a short quest chain, and that completing that quest chain will consume any ranks beyond 35, increase the overall power of your artifact weapon, and they specify to ensure that losing ranks 35 plus isn't a downgrade, which makes me happy, and unlock access to the new 7.2 traits. And then also that any artifact power spent on traits beyond 35 will be refunded, and you'll immediately be able to spend that refunded artifact power on the new traits.
Yeah, so for anyone who possibly doesn't play Warcraft too often or isn't aware, basically your 35th artifact trait unlocks after you have unlocked all other traits on your artifact. So you'll see another like gold dragon trait show up once you unlock your first 3 gold dragon traits. But you can't actually purchase it until you've purchased all other 34. So then once you've purchased it and that you can actually purchase rank 35, you can continue purchasing rank 35 over and over and over again up to a possible cap of 55. So you can basically fill in that hole another 20 times on your artifact. And each time you do that, the first time you do it, it gives you... they're a little bit different depending on your role. But for instance, my paladin is a 5% buff on healing. For my hunter, it was a 5% buff to damage. And then from there, like the 36th time I do it, it's not a 5% buff every time. That would be insane. But it is, it's 0.5 from there. So I went like 5% upgrade, 5.5, 6, 6.5, and onwards. So there is a cap on that, but basically they've said, and I mean, like, it would take you a long time to get to the cap, because I think currently on one weapon, I'm at like 3 point something million artifact power to get the next one. Like it keeps going up. It's not like a million every time or anything.
Yeah.
So it's really difficult to hit 55. I don't know if anyone is currently at rank 55, but that seems crazy to me, because I play a lot of Warcraft and yeah, 55 is still way far away. So
yeah, I've split my artifact power almost 100% down the middle between Blood and Frost on my Death Knight. So I'm not getting there anytime soon.
Yeah, I now have all 3 of my hunter weapons are have all 3 of their gold traits unlocked. One of my hunter weapons, my survival weapon, I've been pouring it into the 35th trait over and over. And same with on my paladin, I've done Ret and Holy. But still, if you look at the amount of artifact power it takes to basically fill in your weapon, that's like your 36th trait. So if you've gotten to the point where you filled in 35 once on one spec, you're probably better off to just go and dump it into an off spec, because, you know, that 0.5% buff is not really as great as possibly having a fully completed off spec weapon. So
yeah, although at this point it sounds like, you know, come 7.2 it won't be as bad, because there'll be new greater traits to unlock.
Exactly.
And you will get those points back to spend them. That has been, for me, the strange thing about artifact power. And honestly, I think one of the things that I have found the least successful kind of in Legion as a whole is this whole kind of minuscule upgrading of everything, including crafted gear, including the Essence of Amenthal quest, your artifact. It all is, it's pretty much, like, to me, I just see it as them bringing back the old convoluted talent trees. Like, they went to great pains to get rid of the old talent tree and make it a lot more dynamic. Every talent you pick, you actually notice a rather stark change in either a new passive or new active ability. And it seems like they seem to have just ushered in kind of the old stat sticks with a lot of different aspects, I think, in Legion. Because like you said, like when you get rank 36, it's just like, oh, okay. I feel...
Well, and that's the thing. I think that the first part of the weapon is really interesting. When everyone was still progressing through, I mean, there were like min-maxi type builds on Icy Veins, but I felt that, and I did this for all my weapons, I chose traits based on the content I was playing and the style that I was playing at the time. So I didn't, even though there were like ideal paths that people had figured out, I didn't necessarily feel that those were the ideal paths for me. And I think that is really what Blizzard's aiming for, is, you know, the ability to say like, okay, Icy Vein says that this is the most powerful next trait, but I don't play in a style where I pull 5 things at once. So AoE actually really isn't important. So I'm going to take the line of, you know, single target, and I'm going to go up that way. And I feel like they gave you those options a lot more in Legion to really customize your power level based on your playstyle. So it was really fun and really interesting right up until the point we hit our 35th or 36th weapon trait. Like by the time we're starting to fill in that trait over and over and over again for these teeny tiny little buffs and power, that's when it kind of started to lose me a little bit. And I think that's probably because we are playing Warcraft so much, you and I, that there's still a lot of people having that experience of leveling through their artifact traits. I mean, obviously there are also quite a lot of people who've now capped out their artifact, but I think that basically Blizzard doesn't want the more casual players to be overwhelmed, but they're also still giving us, who, you know, we farm artifact power, so they're still giving us a way to continue to upgrade our weapons, even if it's not as dynamic and as fun as the first 34 traits were.
All right, well, fair enough.
I'm excited that we're getting new traits in 7.2. My only fear for 7.2 is that, well, basically it could go one of two ways, and I don't really know if I'm happy with either one of these ways. But either by the time 7.2 actually arrives, I will have farmed so much artifact power that I'm not actually going to have to make any decisions. I'm just going to have so much artifact power that all my 7.2 traits are going to be filled in. Or the cost of 7.2 traits are going to be so ridiculously expensive that it's going to take me weeks at a time to farm enough artifact power to then fill those in. So it's like it could go one of two ways, and I don't know if I like either one of those ways. So I'm glad that you won't actually lose artifact power, that you're going to be able to put it into your weapon. And they also patched in the option to now sell artifact power. So I think I looked at a couple of my artifact power tokens, and they were worth like 25-ish gold. I can't tell you exactly what the ratio was. I can't remember if they were blue ones or purple ones or what. But basically, you can now vendor those. So if you have gotten to the point where you have maxed out your artifact power on a spec of your weapon, you can now just sell those extra artifact power for some gold if you want to. There is no... there's no stockpiling bonus or anything like that.
Yeah, there is no benefit. That is you bring up a good point of kind of the information that has been left out. We don't know how many points of artifact power we're going to need to fully spec out our weapon with the new traits that come in 7.2. So who knows? Because they did say don't hold on to your tokens. If you have unlocked the new traits on a weapon after 7.2, you will not be able to use any artifact power tokens on the weapon. Any of them acquired before patch 7.2. So this makes me think we'll be acquiring even more post 7.2, and that they'll probably be even larger, I would assume, since I'm also assuming, with no actual facts or information, that the new traits are going to be rather expensive. So I think that's part of it. I think you'll probably be able to get some traits, but I bet overall it will be rather expensive, but we're also going to get new items that give us even more artifact power so that it kind of keeps the speed in line with what we're already experiencing.
I would hope so. And I mean, the other thing is too, which I don't think that we have any news on, but your actual artifact knowledge right now is capped at 25. So I'm wondering if we'll see like an upping of the cap to 30 or 50 or something to make it so they don't actually have to put new artifact power stuff into the game, but your current ways of getting it will just scale.
Or maybe instead of researching artifact power, maybe it goes up via a quest or something, or maybe via the dailies out on the Broken Isles, or not on the Broken Isle, on the Broken Shore.
Yeah.
Who knows? There was a lot more information here given to us by the CM. There was still quite a bit of information left out.
Yeah.
So we will have to wait and see. But don't hold on to those artifact power tokens. Sell them if you want, or dump them into an off spec. 54 is the max. And you're not going to be able to use those tokens after you unlock your new traits. So keep that in mind. Also, hopefully coming this week to the PTR, the Broken Shore. That's exciting.
Very exciting.
Yeah. Also, new world quests, new artifact traits, including a short quest line to unlock them, the Legion Fall faction, new additions to your Order Hall campaign. So look forward to that,
it
all
sounds
you
like
PTR testers.
They're dropping a lot this week, actually. Looking at all the stuff that's on the coming soon list, like I assumed we'd get kind of one of these things per week, but it seems like they're just going to go splah all over the PTR, which is awesome.
That's a really elegant way of saying that. How far out do you think 7.2 is?
This actually confuses me a little bit, because if you'd asked me that like a couple of days ago, I would have said still months out, because we only just got Nighthold, like we were talking in our previous news story. We still don't have a world first mythic kill in Nighthold. So I would have thought that we would have a couple of months with Nighthold before they would bring in 7.2, because with 7.2 we get the new raid content, which is Tomb of Sargeras. So I thought we'd be a couple of months without raid content, but maybe I'm wrong, because we know that the other 7.3 is going to be the Journey to Argus, which I'm assuming is going to also have a raid associated with that. So maybe they actually legitimately are not necessarily rushing out their new content, but I mean, maybe they did shrink their content cycle, and maybe our rating is going to come sooner than we think. Maybe we're going to get 7.2 actually live, ready to play, like late March, which I would have said like late April, early May previously. Like, but they seem to be rolling it out very, very quickly. So
yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think it's coming sooner than we think. I'm okay with it being a little longer out, if for no other reason than I'm actually starting to get pieces of my tier 19, and it's I really like the set, and I would like to complete it. So please keep running me through Nighthold, guys. Thank you. Anyways, also I have the biggest news this week. I have caught up to our other Death Knight Hakido in our raid group in damage. That is the biggest news ever. I'm no longer useless.
Garrett, you weren't that bad. You were not that bad. But I am glad that you now feel better about your performance, and I don't have to kick you.
I felt like a total scrub that first week. I'm just like, oh man, I haven't been here since I swapped a horde for the first time, which all those many years ago, swapped over to the horde to a Blood Elf Paladin, and my buddies, the raid team I joined, which were some actual actual people in real life I knew from a college class. They just like drug my hobo butt through Ulduar and got me geared to the teeth. Within 2 weeks, my new main was better geared than my alliance main that had just been grinding Lich King raid content for 2 months. I was like, this feels dirty, but at the same time, see ya, suckers. I got myself a real raid team. It was fun, but I didn't like feeling useless, so I'm glad to not be useless anymore. Let's move on and talk about some more World of Warcraft, or just Warcraft in general, lore. Jocelyn, what maniacal, misunderstood, actually kind of surprisingly probably more sympathetic than you think he is character are we discussing this week?
So this is one of the fan suggestions that came through our Fell Kitty giveaway. So
oh yeah.
Thank you guys very much for participating in that and telling me all of your favorite characters from Warcraft, because I have lore suggestions now to last me probably through to like 2018. So you guys are freaking awesome. But the lore suggestion this week is Kael'thas, which is a really interesting character because, like Garrett mentioned, after I put together the lore piece, I was like, I feel a little bit bad for the guy. And Garrett's like, no, he's such a bad guy. And I was like, yeah, but well.
He made some pretty awful decisions at the end of his life.
He did.
I'll put it this. I'll give you this. You can understand why he made those decisions, why he was pushed in that direction.
Yes, and I think kind of by the end of his story, he had just had it with people making him promises that then they didn't fulfill. And the whole time, all the decisions that he made were kind of like the best for his people, or what he thought was best for his people, and trying to save them from their fate as a result of things that had happened earlier on. So I think that there's an argument to make that he's a little bit of a sympathetic character, but in the end, you're right. He may, and when we say in the end, this is basically the content from Burning Crusade in World of Warcraft. That's when, he becomes the bad guy. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts right at the end of his story that he becomes the bad guy. And it's unfortunate, but he had a hard go of it, Garrett.
He did. He's also had some of the best damn quotes in the whole game. So, well, let's turn our world upside down. Tell us about Kael'thas.
All right. So basically, he was a senior member of the Kirin Tor, which we spoke about the Kirin Tor a little bit, probably three or four episodes ago. And he was also the Prince of Kael'thas, which he was the last of the Sunstrider dynasty. So his father was actually the leader of the High Elves in Kael'thas, and so he was a member of the Council of the Six. So he was very, very powerful within the Kirin Tor. He was a very powerful mage.
Yeah, this isn't he's not just showing up to the Shriners with his fez that everyone else has. He's like the leader. I broke the job. The Shriners, man, the club, the guys. Every local parade, they drive around in little cars.
Yeah, sorry about the tangent aside, guy, but is that how you see the Kirin Tor?
No.
The Shriners?
It popped into my head, and I had to get it out because somebody else needed to giggle at the thought of Kael'thas with a fez on.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you got that out of your system.
But basically, I was kind of teasing at your lead-in. It's like, yeah, he was a member of the Kirin Tor. It's like, well, he wasn't just a member. he was kind of a big deal. It's like, I don't. Do you know who I am? I'm kind of a big deal, which I'm sure is something Kael'thas said at some point in his life.
He definitely had that kind of air of arrogance about him, so I wouldn't be surprised. Also a competitor to Arthas for the heart of Jaina, by the way. But yeah, during the Third War, Kael'thas, and we haven't actually talked too much about this, and Arthas was one of the, I think people are just sucking up to Garrett, but Arthas was one of the biggest lore characters who was actually requested through our Fell Kitty giveaway.
Listen, I love Arthas. That's too obvious, though. He's one of the most well-known characters. Like, the point of this segment, and we will cover him eventually. Do not get me wrong, but the point of this is to dive into some of the lesser discussed lore bits of World of Warcraft. And again, I have another tangent that I have to go back. I'm sorry, you keep catching me with thoughts.
Literally 2 points into
I don't care.
2 pages of lore.
I don't care. You know, Kael'thas also vying for the heart of Jaina. Did anyone try to court Jaina who didn't have fabulous hair?
I thought you were going to say who didn't turn evil.
Oh, that too.
Which, to be fair, we're not actually sure about the relationship status of Jaina and Kael'thas, but Kael'thas so far is not evil.
On Facebook, it says it's complicated.
Does anyone still use those? Anyways.
Well, we're older now, so we don't. I am sure some budding, teenagers that think their life is so much harder than it actually is are still using those. I only make fun because I did that like crazy.
Yep. Anyways, so during the Third War, Kael'thas was actually sacked by Arthas and his scourge. So Kael'thas, this is going to be so hard for me switching between these two names.
Okay, so and also for the viewers at home or listeners at home, Kael'thas is the land of the Blood Elves, that northern portion of the continent where Silvermoon, the capital of Kael'thas, is. So Kael'thas is like their entire civilization. Silvermoon is simply their capital. Yes.
So he evacuated as many of the High Elves as he could and assumed command of them, and renamed his followers the Blood Elves in memorial, or in memory of their murdered kin. So basically, the majority of the High Elves were actually killed by Arthas and his scourge. They very badly lost the battle. This is where Sylvanas dies. This is where Kael'thas' father actually dies. So Silvermoon was completely destroyed, and but Kael was actually able to recover the skull of his father and the broken remains of his weapon, Fel'Amalorn, which, if you are currently a fire mage in Legion, that is your legendary weapon. So it was shattered by Frostmourne in the battle between Kael's father and Arthas, and he recovered the pieces and eventually reforged the weapon. So that's extra little piece of lore. If you are currently a fire mage, that's why all of the Blood Elves, whenever you walk by them, and this is probably one of my favorite little kind of Easter eggs within Legion, is depending on what your legendary weapon is, there's like different characters that you can find in the Broken Isles who will react to you in different ways. And Garrett, I think the way that you get it is by those visions of Arthas. Mm-hmm. For me, when I go by a lot of the Tauren, they say, like, oh, you've got the Talon Claw spear, and we bow to you and stuff like that. And it's the same as a fire mage with Fel'Amalorn. When you walk by Blood Elves, they go like they freak out. They're like, is that Fel'Amalorn? Oh my God, that's the weapon of the Sunstriders, and can I see that? And they freak out. I've had a blacksmith in Dalaran who there was like a whole conversation piece I could have with him. Same with some of the Blood Elves involved in the archaeology stuff. It's really interesting. So
they must be tired by freaking out by how many people are walking by with Fel'Amalorn.
I was going to say, there are a lot of fire mages, even within like mages, then like the proportion of which are fire mages is huge. It's by far the most popular spec. So I think they've probably seen Fel'Amalorn quite a lot of times. But basically, after Silvermoon was destroyed, Kael and the Blood Elves were on the run. So his forces were actually part of the Alliance, and this is the Alliance of Lordaeron. This is not the current Alliance as we know it.
Yeah, this is actually why when Burning Crusade was announced and Blood Elves were announced as the as a horde race, everyone was so damn confused because the last time we saw Blood Elves in Warcraft 3, they were hanging out with the Alliance.
Yes. And so we're going to get to the faction flip, and we're going to talk about exactly why it happened. But basically, they were kind of on the run and made it to Dalaran. So his forces were actually stationed in Silverpine Forest to help defend the city because basically the threat of the Scourge was just so huge. And so it was there that he met Maiev. I thought it was Maeve for the longest time, but then after playing in Legion and actually coming across her brother Jared and going on the hunt for her, it's like he kept saying Maiev, and I'm like, that's not how you say it.
Yeah, that's not how you say your own family member's name.
Exactly. Windjam in the chat room saying they were high elves, not blood elves. They were high elves until the sack. We're talking post sacking of Silvermoon, which is when he renamed them to blood elves. So they are technically now in the lore blood elves. So he met up with Maiev and Tyrande, and they were hunting for Illidan. And Tyrande got swept away down the river when they were ambushed by the Scourge, and Maiev refused to look for her, saying basically, she knew the risks. It's like, okay. But as we haven't covered Maiev and her story really yet, have we?
No. Cliff Notes, she's a badass, but really angry.
She's very single-minded.
Yes.
And very much, although she was guarding Illidan for 10,000 years. So
she had a single purpose.
How that might twist your mind a little bit.
She had a single purpose.
Yes. So they continued on their search for Illidan. In spite of Kael's protests, he wanted to go look for Tyrande. But anyways, they decided to go after Illidan anyways and tracked him to Dalaran, where he was using the Eye of Sargeras to attempt to break Northrend apart. And so they were able to interrupt his spell, and Illidan explained that he'd been trying to end the threat of the undead and kill the Lich King, which is basically yet another example of Illidan kind of trying to maybe-ish do the right thing, but not filling anyone in on his plan, and, going about it in the most destructive and easily misunderstood manner possible.
So he's basically Illidan 2. Because that's what Illidan did. Illidan kept doing a bunch of stuff like that. Not
that's what I'm saying. This is Illidan. This is what he's doing. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about Kael'thas. Because Kael'thas also goes and does a bunch of stuff that could be easily misinterpreted as evil. But if he had just, taken 5 minutes to be like, excuse me.
What do you think about this plan, everyone else?
And this is your brain on fell magic.
So basically, Illidan explains that he was trying to end the threat of the undead and kill the Lich King. But Kael, Maiev, and Malfurion are kind of like, WTF, dude. And then they inform Malfurion and Illidan what happened to Tyrande. So the two of them go off in search of her and leave Kael and Maiev behind in Dalaran. So Kael ends up reporting back to his superior officer, who is Grand Marshal Garrethos, who dislikes all non-human races, which is, problem number one.
I don't. What? What are you talking about? There's something wrong with gross racism.
So Garrethos basically told Kael that there was a strike force heading to Dalaran, and he was going to go head them off in the mountains. And Kael volunteered his forces to help, but Garrethos refused. Instead, he sent the Blood Elves to repair observatories in order to verify the approach of any forces from the east. So basically, he said, no, we got this. I'm still mad at you for, basically forsaking your post and going on this chase. And at the time, Night Elves were they were from another continent. Like the Alliance of Lordaeron was, not aware of Night Elves. Like basically Garrethos thought Kael was lying and made up this big story to explain why his troops weren't where they were supposed to be because he had taken his forces on the search for Illidan. So yeah, Garrethos was basically like, you're in the doghouse, go fix those observatories. So the shipyard over on Lordmere Lake had been destroyed, so the elves had no way to get across to these island observatories. So what happened was okay, how do you say this? Because you're going to have to help me with this one.
It's Lady Vaj.
Is it really?
It is really Lady Vaj, because the other is Lady Vaj, and that sounds terrible.
Okay, so feel like I can't even say this because I'm going to say it wrong and then everyone's going to laugh at me.
It's Vaj.
Anyway,
it's Vaj.
she
Here, I'll tap me in, Coach. Lady Vaj then showed up and offered Kael'thas help in the form of boats, and also invoked their common ancestry. So he was like, okay, cool. I'm going to get in this boat and go to those observatories. Thank you, Sea Witch.
Exactly. So basically what she was talking about and what we have talked about before is the Naga also descended from high elves from the Highborn under Queen Azara. So she was basically saying, hey, you guys are elves too. We like elves. We're going to help you. And Kael was like, sweet, because I got to do this thing for that jerk who won't let me actually go and fight.
I mean, I have to interject and be like, Kael'thas, you're literally looking at a woman that looks like Medusa. Maybe, just maybe, think twice. So maybe go get your own boat.
But, I mean, I've got to say, the Naga in this kind of, I guess, iteration or in these stories, and they've been literally nothing but helpful. And I know in World of Warcraft, we're used to looking at them as enemies, but I'm a little bit confused by that because they just seem like they're super helpful. And all of a sudden, they just turn evil.
Well, they're a direct result of the Legion's corruption.
Well, actually, I think the Naga is an old god corruption thing. Well, actually,
they wouldn't have sunken to the bottom of the damn ocean if it wasn't for the Legion in the first place, so...
That is true, but the reason that they're now Naga is because of the interference of the old gods.
Chicken or egg, Jocelyn? Chicken or egg?
Sargeras would have just let them die. Let's be clear.
All right, fair enough. Fine. What one could not be true without the other. Let's just agree on
Very
that.
Very true. So basically, Kael uses the boats, fixes up the observatories. Garrethos returns and condemns Kael again for being allies with the Naga, and he called it treason, even though they were like I said, they were friendly. They were no threat to the alliance, at least at this current point in time. After kind of rebuking Kael, Garrethos returns to the front, sending an emissary to tell Kael that an undead force had been detected. He recalled all non-elven forces with him, which left Kael and the Blood Elves alone to kind of face this undead force. And they were quickly overrun and would have died had Lady
Vaj.
There you go. Not intervened again, reinforcing the Blood Elves with her Naga forces. So after the battle, Lady
Vaj
explained to Kael about the Naga's addiction to magic. This is just hilarious for me now, by the way.
Think of it as a soft J, and it's easier.
Basically, she explained to Kael about the Naga's addiction to magic and was saying that the same thing was happening to the Blood Elves because they no longer had access to the Sunwell. So the Sunwell was at Silvermoon and destroyed when Arthas came through and did his whole sacking thing because he's a big jerk. So she warned him that without a source of magical energy, his people eventually would suffer fatal withdrawal. So Kael heard Garrethos approaching and basically told her to flee because they'd been spotted. Garrethos then charged the Blood Elves with treason and locked them in the dungeons of Dalaran. So...
at this point, you need to at least give it
I don't even want to try.
You need to give it an honest attempt, Jocelyn.
Vaj?
Vaj, yeah. There you go.
That actually helps. So the chat room, thank you. You're helping me.
Yes. Yeah, just stop. Yeah, don't.
It's because there's the weird
that
S in there.
That S. Just don't. Yeah, yeah, exactly. There you go. Cool.
All right. So anyway, she entered Dalaran through the sewers and frees Kael and his fellow elves, and then tells him that they should use Kael'thas' portal because Illidan is waiting for them on the other side, and she explained that Illidan was her ally. So at this point, Kael has already had a run-in with Illidan, knows that he at least opposes the Scourge, which that is basically, he's still looking for vengeance for his people. He even named them Blood Elves because he's so angry about their destruction and the destruction of his homeland. So he is basically like hell-bent on vengeance. And right now, it's very much the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So he's like, all right, yeah, let's go. Let's go through this portal. I want to see this Illidan guy. We got to take on the Scourge. So the Blood Elves go through the portal and are barely able to escape from Dalaran. So this is also basically the kind of catalyst for the split between the Blood Elves and the Alliance, is the charge of treason for basically no reason other than just Garrethos doesn't like any non-human races. So he's like, if you're talking to anyone who's not human, you're a traitor, which is a little bit crazy. So this is basically the split of the Blood Elves from the Alliance, because they were persecuted and imprisoned and were going to be executed had they not been rescued. So
yeah, not a good system of checks and balances apparently in the Kingdom of Lordaeron. It's very, very easy to charge someone with treason, it turns out.
Yeah. So through the portal, they arrive on Hellfire Peninsula, and were actually able to rescue Illidan from Maiev, who had followed them in Outland. Oh, sorry. Illidan filled them in on Outland after they rescued him.
Yeah, it would be a fantastic montage where they just go, "What? Where are we?" Oh, well, let me tell you all about it.
Exactly. So Illidan had fled from Kil'jaeden after his unsuccessful attempt to kill the Lich King, which again was the Eye of Sargeras spell in Dalaran that had been foiled by Kael. Kael then pledged his loyalty to Illidan because Illidan promised him that he would provide the Blood Elves with all the magical energy that they would need in order to sustain themselves. He failed to tell Kael that this was going to be fel energy, but you know, details.
You won't die. You won't die.
Yeah, exactly.
It's heroin, but you won't die. Yet.
Yeah, these little asterisks at the end of these pledging allegiance contracts. But together, Illidan, Kael, and Vash, again, it's the S. It's messing me up every time.
Vaj.
Oh, thank you. And their new ally, Akama, who was head of the Broken in Outland, sought to overthrow Magtheridon, who was a pit lord who was controlling Outland from his throne in the Black Temple. After their victory, Kil'jaeden appeared and gave Illidan one last chance to redeem himself by killing the Lich King. So this is where kind of the contact with the Burning Legion happens for Kael'thas. So this is his first-hand introduction to Kil'jaeden and the Burning Legion and the demons. And I'm actually kind of interested that if because basically the Scourge and even the Orcs, for that matter, were kind of tools that were put into motion by the Burning Legion in order to weaken Azeroth. And so I'm really interested that if Kael'thas actually had that information when meeting Kil'jaeden, because he knew the Arthas and he knew that the Scourge, he knew those were his enemies. But if he'd known that the Burning Legion had created the Scourge and basically started all of those events, then we would have had a different ending for Kael'thas and his story.
Oh, I'm sure, but that deception is very important to the story.
Absolutely. It definitely is. So basically, as he was loyal to Illidan, Kael'thas and his Blood Elves then marched on Northrend, slowly beating back Anub'arak and his race of, and I'm totally blanking, and I don't know why I didn't put them in the notes.
Nerubians, thank you. The awesome spider people, and we even ran one of their old dungeons in Time Walking last week, and it was great.
We did.
And I had a giant nostalgia overload.
Which is great, and that's another reason I love Time Walking, because it lets me see stuff for the first time, and it lets Garrett actually go back and get that whole ooh.
Yep, I'm actually having the same type of nostalgia right now because we're talking about Kael'thas. I'm sad you missed all of this.
I'm sad I missed all of this too, and I mean, this is all stuff from Warcraft 3 and from Burning Crusade, which is stuff that I didn't play at the time. So this is I love this story. I think it's really cool, and I think that's probably why I'm a little more sympathetic to him than you are, because I didn't actually see all the in-game stuff happening at the time. I've read the books and looking back on it and making summaries, it makes him sound a little bit more sympathetic, I think, than he was at the time. But
yeah, I think I want to. This I don't think this is the case anymore, but I think I remember when you used to roll a Blood Elf in the starting experience. Like when you were in Silvermoon, there was this bend where you could see NPCs speaking out against Kael'thas, and they were getting arrested.
Oh yeah, no, that's at least by the time I started a Blood Elf. So I started a Blood Elf near the kind of end of Cataclysm, And so by that time, obviously, we'd beaten him in Burning Crusade. So it's very much just they were deceived. Like the overall cinematic is like they were deceived. Like first the Sunwell was destroyed, and then they were deceived by their prince, and so now they're fighting to redeem their race and stuff like that. So it was very much like all that stuff had been patched out and was over by the time I got in there. I was very confused about the story of the Burning Crusade by the time I got to that content.
Yeah.
But anyways, that was a tangent and a half. So getting back to the attack on Northrend, Arthas had also arrived in Northrend with an undead army, and he was determined to reach the Frozen Throne. So they faced off against each other several times, but the ultimate battle was between Illidan and Arthas. Arthas got the better of Illidan, and as Arthas rose to claim the throne, Kael and Vaj, right?
Yep, nailed it.
Rescued Illidan and fled back to Outland. Which is now, this is the time when we get to the Burning Crusade and the World of Warcraft content. So the Blood Elves on Azeroth had essentially been abandoned by the Alliance and joined forces with the Horde in an effort to reach Outland and claim the destiny that Kael had promised them. So basically, he had said, I'll fix this, and then disappeared. So the Blood Elves on Azeroth were kind of like, WTF, should we come with you? Or and so... Again, joined forces with the Horde. Kael'thas claimed Tempest Keep in Northrend as his base of power in Outland.
Yeah, you mean Netherstorm.
What?
You said Northrend.
Oh, did I? Sorry. Yeah. Netherstorm. It's literally, I'm just skimming over stuff. Netherstorm. Sorry. Didn't mean to say that.
Yes.
Save your emails, please.
Pretty purple lightning place.
Yes. which he chose because there was so much mana and so much power in Netherstorm.
Yeah.
So he slowly began turning his back on Illidan, who Illidan's base was in the Black Temple. So literally opposite sides of Outland. The Scryers, who were blood elves who had come to Outland to find Kael'thas, devoted their lives to Adal upon arriving in Shatrath. Adal is one of the Naru.
Yep.
And so basically they came upon her, were in awe of her glory and power and light and everything else, and so forsook Kael'thas in favor of her.
Yeah. Also sort of the beginning, I think, of like the redemption of the Blood Knights.
Yes.
Who originally gained their paladin powers by torturing a Naru.
Well, yeah, this happened. The Blood Knights and their redemption happens a little bit later, but
this sets them down the path.
So yes, they basically the Scryers work to uncover the fact they're trying to figure out what happened to their prince. And they find out that he's entered a pact with the Burning Legion, which is, again, this is when he's like, okay, he's gone too far. But he's had like the Alliance betray him, Illidan betray him. Like all he wants to do is help his blood elves. And like I said, he didn't know about the fact that the Burning Legion was responsible for the Scourge. So he enters a pact with the Burning Legion, who basically say, yeah, we'll fix your mana problem. And he's like, thank you. Finally. But basically he sides with them over Illidan because Illidan is becoming more and more obsessed with his own plans. He stops trusting his allies and seems to descend into madness following his defeat by Arthas. So they continue, the Scryers continue to fight against Kael'thas and his Sun Fury Blood Elves. So that's the kind of distinction there is there are now multiple factions of blood elves. There are Azerothian blood elves, there are Scryers, and there are Sun Fury.
Yeah, we end up, regardless of your faction, killing a lot of Sun Fury blood elves if you played Burning Crusade when it was current.
Yes. So Kael'thas was actually defeated at Tempest Keep, but warned everyone in Shatrath that he was not truly defeated and that Kil'jaeden would return.
Oh,
so this
come
has
on.
become... What?
You gotta say it, right?
Say what?
Death was merely a setback.
We're not there yet. That's what he says. And God damn, stop jumping ahead, Garrett. He hasn't actually said that.
But he was not truly defeated because death is merely a setback.
So Kael'thas returns to Azeroth. Though he was a little bit changed, he had a crystal lodged in his chest. One of his verdant spheres, which are orbs that siphon the essence of those a blood elf has vanquished, was missing. It was actually something that dropped out of the raid if you defeated him at Tempest Keep, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, you get one of Kael'thas's orbs.
Yes.
Kind of sweet. Don't say balls, Garrett. Don't say balls.
So he uses the power that he collected in Netherstorm. Kael then attempts to reinvigorate the Sunwell, except he's gone past the point of trying to save his people now. He is now trying to save his people by serving the Burning Legion as opposed to just creating a new Sunwell. Mm-hmm. So he hopes that the new Sunwell can actually be used the way that the Well of Eternity was used 10,000 years earlier to basically create a portal that would allow Kil'jaeden to enter Azeroth. So Kael and his now fell Blood Elves assaulted the Blood Knight headquarters in Silvermoon and captured the Muru, taking the weakened Naru to the Sunwell Plateau. So this is what you were talking about, Garrett, where the Blood Elf Paladins were actually siphoning the power of the Naru, not understanding exactly what the being was. And so therefore they were siphoning the power in order to become more and more powerful paladins. They weren't serving the light. They were stealing the light, essentially.
Yeah. Sith and Jedi.
Kind of, yes. So Lady Liedrin, who was the leader of the Blood Knights, broke off ties with the House of Sunstrider because basically their leadership, so Kael'thas and his house were the ones who had said, like, oh yeah, no, totally do this. This is good. And so just the Blood Knights in general, and there's actually a short story that details how Lady Liedrin actually became the head of the Blood Knights and like the first Blood Knight. And it's actually really interesting to see all of the deception that led to the creation of this order, who really did believe that they were doing good and that they were right by siphoning this power. So she broke ties with him and swore allegiance to the Shattar and the Shattered Sun offensive. And Kael'thas was finally killed at Magister's Terrace, which is when he utters the line that death was merely a setback, which is one of the most iconic lines from World of Warcraft. And basically his mind had been warped by power in the Burning Legion, so he never actually got to see the Sunwell reignited.
Well, good, because freaking Kil'jaeden came out of it, so there you go.
Well, but then in the end, the Sunwell was saved, right?
Yeah, it was, after we murdered him because he went insane and was going to do nothing but harm.
Yes.
But yeah, listen, I like elves, except Malfurion. And the Night Elves major player Illidan, he's getting his second chance in Legion. Can we dig Kael'thas up, smack him around a little bit, and be like, listen, we get where you were going. Let's try this again.
I don't really know. I don't want to see that happen to too many characters, because I think that we're going to see a very similar resurrection of some of the characters that we've seen die, specifically Ysera. I think we're going to see again. We're probably going to see Azshara again, who is going to be obviously in her new incarnation of the Queen of the Naga as opposed to the Queen of the Night Elves. But
yeah, that's different though. Like Azshara just never really died. She transformed. Ysera exists in the dream,
so it's not quite the same. Ysera what?
Ysera currently exists in the dream.
Yeah, but it's her spirit, right? Like we killed her, she dead.
but again, it's like I in the realm of the World of Warcraft fantasy, I accept that. And even Illidan I thought was okay, because it's like they kind of...
Yes, and I agree.
I thought it was
like
a well done...
Illidan, but I feel like Illidan and Kael are too close in character, kind of always trying to do the right thing, but making very poor choices. And so I don't know if I want to see that actually happen.
The only argument I'm trying to make, and I don't feel that deeply, it's just fun. The only argument I'm trying to make is we haven't had someone just straight up brought back from the dead in a while. So I vote Kael'thas. Like Illidan, it was I think retconned well in that, oh no, he just never died. Well, he sort of did, but he's on death's door and put in a big green crystal. But yeah, whatever the case is. I would be okay with Kael'thas coming back, is what I'm saying. So I would be more okay with Kael'thas coming back than Arthas, even though I'm like, yeah, Arthas, that's my boy. Don't bring Arthas back.
Arthas has had
it's very important for him to die, and I like that. I like where that ended. Mm-hmm. So, anyways, that's awesome, Jocelyn. At the end of that, I feel more sympathetic towards Kael'thas.
I'm glad. That's always my goal. Actually, no, that's not true. Some people are just straight up evil. I will not make all bad characters into sympathetic characters, I promise.
Next week, Jocelyn tries to make you love Sargeras.
Nope.
I love Kael'thas. He's one of my favorite characters, even though he's a nut job.
He goes crazy near the end, but he's definitely just more of he's an arrogant prince, really.
Yes.
That's his biggest problem.
Yeah. He road to hell paved with, etc. All that stuff. Let's take some emails before we wrap this episode up. You can send your emails to FAZpodcast. That's FAZpodcast at gmail.com. John writes in and says, hello, fellow Azerothians. A few months back, a friend and myself were discussing the future of Warcraft and where it might go after the Legion is dealt with. I hope we end up exploring more worlds and run into new stories, environments, and characters. Basically, I'd like to explore a bit more of the universe instead of just dealing with the same or similar problems. One way to do this could be making a Warcraft single-player RPG along the lines of Dark Souls, The Witcher, and Skyrim. Remove Dark Souls from that list, and I'm on board. I'm 100% on board if you get rid of Dark Souls. As you know, Blizzard tends to have a knack for finding the fun in any type of game they put their hands on, so they shouldn't have much trouble making it engaging. This game could take place a couple hundred years in the future, and we'd run into new problems and people, new stories. I understand all this would involve a lot of work, but Warcraft's universe has so much potential that I'd love to explore some more of it. And I'd love to see so many places to be really fleshed out. Imagine a fully detailed and almost lifelike Lordaeron, Silvermoon, and maybe Evenhold. Not only that, but also going all out and making the class fantasy that's kind of limited in World of Warcraft for balance sake. Thanks for reading For the Horde and Azeroth. Thanks, John. I would be very into this. I do feel the need to pick a nit about how this would somehow give us like a different experience. Like still be fighting orcs or fighting demons or fighting.
I think more along the lines of like what he's saying is actually, being able to experience some of these stories, but in a way that, it doesn't have to be a persistent world. You don't have to, lose things. You can actually play through an entire story at your own pace, which I think is kind of, as someone who came to Warcraft after a lot of these things had happened. I mean, we even talked in this episode when we were talking about lore, like by the time I started, everything that happened at Silvermoon had already happened. Kael'thas had already been overthrown, so I didn't get to see a lot of the things like you were talking about, Blood Elves speaking out against him, being arrested, and just all those little, like, lifelike flavor pieces that you miss when, you're dealing with a persistent world that is World of Warcraft. And World of Warcraft obviously has to keep changing because otherwise people who have been around for 12 years will get bored, as they should. I do think a single player experience would be really, really cool. And I mean, whether they actually do this in World of Warcraft as, say, like some sort of single player instance scenario or something would be cool, or if it's a full on standalone game, I love this idea. I know it's probably not going to happen, but I think it's a really, really cool idea, is to have the ability to play through some of these stories in a open world-ish type setting, just to kind of allow a little bit more fleshing out and a little bit more direct storytelling, because I think that's kind of the problem with Warcraft sometimes, is that they've gotten better and better at it in like directing you in the way of their story. But especially if you look at like vanilla, it's really hard to tell. Like all the zones are very like I guess each zone kind of has a story, but even then it's difficult to tell exactly what the story of the zone is because there's so many little side questy things. So like I said, they've gotten better, and I think that Legion is very, very good. And especially like, again, each zone has their own story, but it's very obvious as to what the story of the zone is. There's, cutscenes that are helping to flesh that stuff out as well. But yeah, I would love to see a single player fleshed out questing story experience.
Yeah, I'd be all for that as well. Whether it's 100 years in the future or whatever. I mean, that kind of is what it is. The issue with like jumping ahead is then you hamstring what you would do in the MMO, right? Like if you jump, if you jump ahead 50, 75, 100 years, the MMO eventually has to reach that point.
Yeah. What would actually be a really, really cool single player RPG is War of the Ancients, because that's already happened. Like we kind of know that story, but to actually play through that content, I think would be really cool, because you would see Azeroth, but it would be different because it would be before the Well of Eternity exploded and created the different continents. You would get to see, demons. You'd get to see dragonflights, like full on dragonflights before the corruption of Deathwing. So, you would actually see his, evolution to madness and all the rest of it, and you would see him destroy the blue flight, and there's so many big iconic storylines that take place that I would love to see that be the setting of an RPG.
Yeah,
a single player experience.
I agree. Let's go back. Like back in time.
Yeah, back I think is safe. Future is, like you said, the MMO will probably catch up, so I don't know if future is the way to go until they're fully done with the MMO. If they get to a point, like the thing that's popping into my head because it's coming out very soon is Mass Effect, where they're going into the future, but the story of Mass Effect 3 and the Reapers and all that kind of stuff, that's done, right? So we already know what the canon ending of that is going to be. So, or yes, I guess
disappointing.
We're going to get a canon ending of that series, but because we're going ahead in the future. So like there is no more game there. Whereas with World of Warcraft with the MMO, they're still adding on. They're still filling in that gap. So like you're right. If the MMO keeps going, eventually they're going to get there. So that might be a sticking point.
Yes.
But if we go back is fine.
Back is fine. Got to go back in time. Just not with Garrosh. Yeah.
Yes.
There we go. Who's our final email from?
Final email is a really short one. Comes to us from Rodney, who says, "How long do you think it will be before we're forced to kill Alexstrasza? She's the only original flight leader that we haven't slain in some form," which is true. She is the now that we've killed Ysera in Legion, she is the only remaining former flight leader. So, or I guess original flight leader, because technically Kael'thas took over the blue flight, but now they've kind of disbanded.
Don't make me kill Alexstrasza.
Hmm?
Don't make me kill Alexstrasza.
Yeah, I mean, so basically we've had everyone corrupted in some way or another, usually by old gods, although Ysera was, I guess, corrupted by the Nightmare, which actually technically is a creation of the old gods. So it might be, if we're right about kind of our thoughts and predictions of where we're going with the next expansion after we deal with the Burning Legion, they do seem to be setting it up a lot. There is an instance of Ysera in the Emerald Nightmare with a small little piece of corruption, a little corrupted plant that she kind of goes and it's actually really creepy. I think we had an email about it very close to the beginning of the start of the show, where basically she's in her spirit form. She looks like a night elf, and she just kind of wanders into the back of the area into a tree, and there's a little piece of Nightmare still in the tree, and she just kind of looks at it and then sighs and then walks back out, and that's all she does is she just paths back and forth, and it's really creepy and like disconcerting to see her like that, because everyone else who you've freed through the course of the raid and the purging of the Nightmare, and even if they are dead, they're in spirit form in the Emerald Dream, they're all still happy and talking to you, and but she is just pacing back and forth. So it really seems that they're setting up for something along the lines of an old god expansion. We've been reintroduced to Queen Azshara and the Naga in Azuna. And so it seems like they're prepping us for the return of probably N'Zoth, who technically we haven't actually seen in World of Warcraft. He is we talked about the Black Empire a few episodes back, and so he's a kind of a remnant of the time when the old gods were kind of covering Azeroth. So I think we're ramping up to an old god expansion, and if that's the case, then I think Alexstrasza, as the last original flight leader, who basically the dragonflights were part of the creation after the old gods had left, but they are basically the most powerful beings still on Azeroth, or they were prior to having to basically give up their powers and give up their heads of the flights and their immortality and everything else to defeat Deathwing, but still, they're very, very powerful beings. And I can see them as primed for old god corruption.
Nosdormu is still around, everyone. It's not just Alexstrasza.
But we did have to actually go and kill him in Lich King. He was he got corrupted. He was like I can't remember. I think he was old god corrupted, but he was definitely corrupted. We go and kill. I think it's a dungeon. You go ahead in time as opposed to back in time, and you have to kill him because he's the leader of the Infinite Dragonflight. Corrupted Nosdormu.
But he's chilling at the end of Cataclysm along all of the other aspects as you watch the sand
he is
pour out of
technically
his...
still alive right now, but we have killed him in the future.
Oh,
in
weird.
end time.
Oh, that was a Cataclysm dungeon.
Oh, was it Cata? Oh, sorry.
Yeah. But okay, I didn't think anything there was canon. I thought it was a vision of what could be if Deathwing wasn't stopped. And I thought by stopping Deathwing that future would not come to pass.
I'm not 100% sure because, again, that was not stuff that I played through at level. But
okay.
Anyway,
because also
he has been killed in some form. But yes, technically he's still around.
Okay, yeah.
But he is also doing Nordstormer things, which is like, since he is the aspect of time, he really does do the fading in and out, and his consciousness is like all around all the time.
Oh, he's an awesome character.
Of time.
Yeah.
He is. He's a very awesome character. But yeah, we have had to kill him in some form, in some iteration. And you're right that technically in the present, he is still around and alive. But he has been shown to be corruptible, and we have had to kill him at the end time. So Alex Straza is the only one who we have not had to fight yet.
Yeah.
Yet. But I think she might be primed for corruption in the next expansion. So we'll have to see what happens. But she is not immune, I think, which does make me kind of sad because I love and maybe this is the story that we'll actually tell next week. Maybe this will be our next lore thing because it was another one that was requested, was basically the story of the creation of the aspects and the different flights and all that kind of stuff. So that might be a cool lore segment because I like them. I think they're awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't make me kill it. Don't make me kill Alex Straza unless I get her awesome, plate mail bikini. I'll take that. I'll sign me up for that. But I want to wear it as a dude.
There actually is. I feel like there's a couple of pieces, and I can't remember who they dropped from. It might be a world boss, but there are a couple of pieces that are basically like plate bikinis.
Oh yeah. No, I'm aware of that.
One of them I think is called something along the lines of, and I know I'm not getting this right, but it's like close enough. Like one of them is actually called like the barely there armor or something. Like they have names that are literally saying things that are like, this is basically not clothes.
This is not clothes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. I'm very aware that there's bikini armor out there, and thank you for Demon Hunters, because now there's finally skimpy male armor in the game. Finally. I don't just have
Garrett just really wants to be naked, guys. Why can't Garrett just be naked?
Thank you, Morosis Polishing Oil. That's going to do it for this episode. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you are listening on iTunes and you like For Azeroth, do us a favor. Go over there and drop us a 5-star review. It helps out the show a lot. On this episode, we wanted to thank Tony22 and Yellowflower BWR, who wrote, "These guys regularly make me lol in public and make me seem like a crazy person." So
I love those messages.
Thank you.
That makes me so happy.
Thank you for the 5-star reviews, everyone. They mean a lot. You can subscribe to us on iTunes, as we mentioned, just about anywhere else podcasts can be found, and over on youtube.com/amovetv. You can catch us live usually Mondays at 12 p.m. Eastern Time on twitch.tv/amovetv. We did move to Tuesday this week, but we'll probably be back at our normal day and time next week. And you can catch us live virtually on any device thanks to alphageekmedia.com. Jocelyn, when you're not picturing my Death Knight in a sexy plate mail bikini, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Twitch. I'm at Joss Plays. That's JOCE Plays. You can also find me right here on twitch.tv/amovetv every Wednesday night for the Gamers In. And I strongly recommend everyone tune in tomorrow because we are going to be talking about our hands-on experience with the Nintendo Switch that we had this past weekend. So if you guys are curious about whether or not you should keep your pre-orders or whether you should pre-order at all, or if you should just hang on to your Wii U, then please do tune in tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/amovetv.
I don't have a Wii U, so I'm getting one.
Fair enough.
It's basically where my opinion. Like, if anyone asks me, like, "Well, what do you think of the Nintendo Switch?" I'm like, I think you should get one if you don't have a Wii U. If you do, just play Zelda and move on with your life. Anyways, I'm totally getting one, by the way. This is, I realized that was a rather dismissive statement. I'm going to get a Switch as soon as I possibly can. You can find me on Twitter at Garrett Art. Every single podcast I do can be found on amove.tv. That's AMOVE.tv. Got Angry Chicken later today. Got the Angry Chicken Patron Hangout later today. Got it Into the Nexus on Thursday. Got the Into the Nexus Patron Hangout on Friday. A lot of podcasting happening this week. All can be found at amove.tv.
Attack Hangout is on Wednesday.
Is it on Wednesday? I thought I said Wednesday.
You said today.
Did I say Tuesday? Sorry. Tax today,
Tuesday.
TAC Hangout tomorrow, ITN Thursday, ITN Hangout Friday.
There you go.
Overwatch is next week. And an Angry Nerd needs to get squeezed in there somewhere. Things are happening. So, anywho, that's going to do it for this episode of 4 Hours, where I thank you, everyone, including Jocelyn, for hanging out. And we will see you next time. Good luck and have fun.